I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody. We do have some people signed up for public input 1. First on our list is Joe Amato.
It's okay, Mr. Malley, we're kind of talking about the same topic. Is it okay, Mr. Malley, it goes first?
Sure. Chase Malia.
And I've been reminded to make sure you speak into the mic.
Anything else to say about?
Oh, please keep your comments to 5 minutes. Don't talk about any personnel, and remember that you're being videotaped, and be kind and respectful.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Chase Malley. I'm a mathematics teacher here at Pearson. I've been teaching here for 7 years, and this is the first time in those 7 years that my concerns have risen to a level where I felt the need to speak at a board meeting. I'm here tonight to speak in opposition to the later start times proposal. I teach because I strongly believe in the importance of the work we do as educators. I'm passionate about my job, I'm committed to my students, and I'm enamored by the community of Sag Harbor. I would stand in front of a bus for my students and have deep respect for science and data. So naturally you would think that I'd be here tonight advocating for later start times. But I am not. I'm here to present my view that starting school later would not be in the best interest of our students. Like many young teachers on the East End, I live west of the canal. Not only because I cannot afford to live in the community where I teach, but also because employment opportunities for my wife are scarce on the East End. An increasing number of our teachers, commute from west of the canal like I do. According to U.S. Census data, the average worker in the United States spends 27.2 minutes commuting to work, and the average worker on Long Island is taking 33 minutes. A normal ride for me takes 45 minutes beginning in the spring and extending through September, I spend 3 to 4 hours commuting to and from work. A regular workday for me begins at 4:45 a.m. when I wake up, and especially this time of year ends around 7 p.m. when I arrive home. I have to leave my house around 5:40 to ensure that I will get to work on time. On the worst days, traffic on Sunrise Highway heading east comes to a standstill before West Hampton. A later start time would further increase commute times for teachers. Research shows that a 25-minute delay in start times, on top of the 10-minute previous change, would add an additional 20 minutes or more to both the commute to work and the commute home. Pushing the start time back will result in teachers having to leave their homes at roughly the same time, but getting home from work approximately 45 minutes later. I believe our faculty is extremely generous with their time. I spoke with an electrician last year who was working at Pearson, who said that he works in schools regularly, and he has never seen a school with faculty who stay as late as our teachers do. However, there's only so much time in a day. A later start time will mean that teachers will have less time to grade papers, plan lessons, run extra help, coach sports, advise clubs, and attend school events during the evening hours. Less time for teachers means less time they have for the courses they teach. Starting school later will result in more students and coaches missing academic support in 9th period classes to attend sporting events. We are starting to see commute times have an impact on employee retention as well. I've spoken extensively with some of our faculty members who have gone on to work in other districts. The commute has been a significant mitigating factor in their decision to leave the district. I understand that this is a difficult decision for the school board given the concerns of various stakeholders, but I would ask you to consider the feedback teachers have submitted in opposition to this proposal. We can't put our students first by putting our teachers last. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Amato. I'm one of the senior members here at Pearson. I'm not here just to speak as a representative for TASH, but an advocate for the district, an institution that I spent more than half of my life in this building, teaching, educating, and I've learned a lot from the community. And I'm very, very happy and very proud that I work in a district like Sag Harbor. It's really a nice place to be. I have two concerns I want to talk about. To quote Mr. Nichols, one of the most important jobs that an administrator can do in this district, and I think he would agree with me, is the hiring of staff. It's the people in front of the classroom. It's the educators that make the district. I mean, you folks are important, don't get me wrong. but it's the teachers that really facilitate the process here. No, you're a good board. I mean, we've come a long way. I mean, I can attest to that. I mean, we've come a long way, and it's because of support from folks like you. But teachers, they're the backbone of the school. We've had some turnovers. Mr. Malia has alluded to them. Some, not a lot, but some. But there's going to be a bubble coming up in the next 5 or so years. People are retiring, like myself, and we want to maintain this kind of golden age that we've been in the last 10 or so years. And it's in this age of restricted spending. It's very, very difficult to get staff and to hold on to them. When people look for jobs, they look for salaries, they look for where they're going to work, but they look at the quality of their life. Very few people, young people, can move to the east of the canal and purchase a home and raise a family here. And I'm not complaining how much money I make. It's just the cost of living is very, very high. So someone like myself who started nearly 30 years ago, you rented in Hampton Bays, you worked, I coached 2, 3, 4 seasons, you do adult ed, you work in the summer, you scrape and you save, and you buy a house. But the problem is that the younger people are having to move further and further west. I have 2 good friends, they're in the Mauritius. I'm in East Quogue. Today, going against traffic, took me 33 minutes to get here tonight. I slept in late today. I left my house at 6. Normally I leave at about 5:45. It took me an hour to get here, leaving at 6 o'clock. I get here, hour and 15 minutes before. I grade labs. I do whatever I got to do. But that wears on people. It limits doing the extra stuff. I think teaching is not just about teaching your 5 or 6 periods a day in academic support. It's doing clubs. It's coaching. It's doing those extra things. I stayed after school today to give extra help for my Regents kids. Stayed till 3:30. What's normally a 40 or 45-minute commute home now turned into an hour and 5-minute commute home. And I'm only going to East Quogue. I'm not going to, Riverhead with the new traffic lights they put in on 24, or, further west to the Mauritius. These young people I'm talking about, they're young, they're single. They haven't had families yet. Now put yourself as a parent, you're leaving your house before 6, and you're not getting home till 7, or maybe later. We don't go into teaching to work those kind of hours. I mean, it's a trade-off, there's perks. And one of those perks is getting home at a reasonable time. It's going to be very difficult for us to hire teachers, hire coaches. We've got a whole big dilemma in the district getting substitute teachers. You folks know about these things. Having school start a half an hour or an hour later is going to deter from hiring the best staff we possibly can. So please consider that. Pearson's a great place to work. It's a great place to learn. I'm happy I'm here. And I'm thinking about the next generation. Those folks are going to take my job. Do they want to be sitting in this trade braid for 4 or 5 months of the year and say, what am I doing where I can get a job somewhere up west? So it's one part of the equation. I know there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things going through your mind, but don't just think about it now, but think of those staff members you're going to hire in the future and the quality of education. We want to keep this ball rolling. This district has gone through a complete metamorphosis since I started here. I don't want to take any more time up, but it's a great place to be, and we want to keep it a great place. Okay, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Larry Balls.
Hi, everyone. My name is Larry Baltz. I'm a parent of an 8th grader here at Pearson. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. And I'm going to surprise everybody tonight and talk about later start times. And I recognize what you both have just had to say, and I recognize that this is an issue that's very, very difficult to come to a consensus on. There's a lot of obstacles that are hard to figure out with later start times. But to me, I have to keep going back, and you've heard me say this before, I keep going back to science. And I keep going back to the recommendations of various physicians and medical groups, National Sleep Foundation, the American Academy of Pediatrics. You've heard all these names before, the CDC, all these people that recommend that we, have our kids start school no earlier than 8:30 a.m. And right now we're starting just about 1 hour earlier than the earliest recommendation. And to me, that's an issue. And I spoke with my wife about this at length over the weekend, and I have a few notes that I made as kind of a distillation of what both of us had to think about this. And I started thinking when I was driving the other day about what to expect when you're expecting. That's a book that probably everybody here is familiar with, right? We all used it. It was like a Bible. Our kids were born. We looked at it and we said, okay, well, this is what we have to do. Well, when you're pregnant, you need to get this much sleep, and you need to eat this diet, and you need to do all these things. And you do them because physicians and people who know about these things tell you that's what you should do.
The first kid.
Yeah, the first kid at least. Yeah, I've only got the one. So for me, it's, one. After that, you've got a baby, and then you got a toddler, and the kid has to sleep, and, you do anything to get your kid to get the right number of hours of sleep, because this is what you need to do. It's a growing child, it's a baby. This thing needs its sleep. There's commercials on TV that are based around, parents taking their children out for long drives just so they can get enough sleep. We believe all the studies about whether, a baby should get sleep, or a pregnant woman or a toddler should get sleep. And I don't understand why once they become adolescents, we decide, well, the science doesn't matter anymore. All the things that these doctors and other groups have told us don't count, because it's hard. That's why, we have teachers who have to commute a long time. We have sports schedules that have to be adjusted. We have the possibility that some people are going to be left out if we move the start time when it comes to sports participation. I've also heard people stand up here and say, we need to toughen up our kids. We need to make sure that they're prepared for the future. What are they going to do when they go to college? Well, colleges are changing their start times too, because they recognize that this part of children's growth doesn't end until they're in their early 20s. So colleges are changing it. You're seeing colleges move around. If you read, they're changing their 8 a.m. start times in some cases. I guess what I'm thinking is we would never take a toddler and say, hey, you need to stop napping now to get ready for kindergarten, because you need to prepare. Or, you need to get up earlier to get ready for high school that's coming down the line. We don't do that. We respect what the doctors have told us. So I think we need to do the same thing for our kids. And, what I'm asking the board to do is to make a compromise. I'm not asking for 8:30. I don't think that's going to happen right away. I'm asking for 8. That's 25 additional minutes. It's still a half an hour earlier than anybody recommends. And I also have listened really carefully to what the teachers had to say. And once again, I really do respect what you guys are doing. And I recognize that it's a nasty commute. I own a small business. I've had one out here for the last 20 years, and I've struggled and watched my employees suffer as the commute times have gotten longer and longer. I know you said there was some research. I don't know what the research is. I'm curious because one of the things that's happened with my own employees recently is they've started coming a half hour later. And it's not coincident to this conversation tonight, but they have found that there's a window that occurs. They used to come at 7, then they came at 6:30, then they came at 6, and it got worse and worse and worse as more and more people struggled to try to beat that traffic. So I'm wondering if maybe there is a window, or if that's something that's fluid and is going to change. So in the end, I'm just going to ask, please, I wish the board and the administrators could find a way to stop finding more ways to delay this decision, to put it off for another year. We've been talking about it for 3 years. When Ms. Grace first arrived, we had ad hoc meetings with parents, and we talked about it, and we talked about surveys, and we've done all this stuff. I'd really just like to see it finally get done. And I'm asking you respectfully to please do that for us and for our kids. And before I go, just in case I don't get a second, I wanted to say a sincere thank you to Sandy Krul and Teresa Samet for all the years that I've been watching you guys up here on the board. So I may not get a chance to say it, so just wanted to say thanks. And that's all I got. And now I'm going to go home and have dinner. Watch you guys on video tomorrow. Thanks.
Thanks, Larry. Jay and Wendy Flanagan? Of course.
Just talking to the microphone so we can catch you.
Thank you. My name is Wendy Flanagan, and this is my husband, Jay. We are parents of a 6th grader and a 9th grader here at the school. And we are here to speak about the later start time, of course, and that we oppose a later start time. We would like to keep it at 7:30 or 7:35 for a few reasons. Mainly, it would change our lives dramatically, similar to what the teachers were saying. I am a teacher in another district, and my husband works for himself. So we do have to be up and out early. We've raised our kids to be up and out early. We function very well up and out early. It's just the way our families run. They're very busy after school, sports, theater, everything else. So we know there's only so much time in the day. But something else I just want to say, regardless of our family, is that being here in the school, I see all the wonderful things that the kids are doing, getting here at 7:30. They're not only getting here on time and functioning, but I'm amazed at seeing all the things that kids are excelling at with sports and theater and music and arts. And I hope people realize that the school day ends at 2:30, but so many of these kids continue their day so much into the evening, seeing the musical for middle school and the high school musical. I mean, the hours that those children put in, and they're like thriving, and then they're showing up on time the next morning. And I guarantee those are some of your best students. And they're killing it the next day at school, and then they're doing it again over and over again. And then I hear that they're doing Bay Street productions and art shows and sports and private sports. So for me personally, I would just like to ask the administration, and thank you for everything you do, and the board, thank you for everything you do. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Just to please keep the bar high, because I think those are the kids that are going to be your role models, and that's what you want to achieve, is using those kids to show what can be done. I think they're excellent at it, and I'm always impressed, and I feel like there's always going to be excuses. Like I know the research, and I respect the research. I haven't honestly even looked into the research because it just doesn't suit us, and I just feel that kids can do it, and that's pretty much, how I feel. So thank you for listening.
My name is Jay Flanagan, same parents of the same children.
Thanks for clarifying.
I just wanted to, with respect to Mr. Baltz's comments about sleep and technology, I don't know. I heard a really great story about a family that got up at 4 a.m. to milk the cows going to school in the town, and they took a shower and went to school and played sports and had a very fruitful life. My son swims, but he's not on the national team, but there are members of his team that are on that. Those children practice at 5:30 every morning, and then they practice again after school. And I would defy you to find one of those kids that's going to be a couch potato on their parents' couch when they're 28 years old. Those kids know how to eat it. They are getting the world. They're getting themselves ahead in everything, and they are going after all the things that their parents tell them they can get. And they're not going to be the kids that we're going to be looking back and regretting that we didn't move the start time on. And also in terms of technology, I feel like, these kids are looking at their screens. We've invited these terrible things into our house that are draining our kids, and they're staying up late and they're staring at them. And I can't seem to figure out one single thing that's good about it, but here we are. Do our kids need more sleep because they're going to bed at 11 o'clock? Our kids are pretty much done at 9:30. If they can even stay up, we're putting them to bed if they think they can. So I don't know what else is going on in everybody's house that all of a sudden this is having a profound effect on their children's ability to learn, but I have to think that's playing a very vital role. And I think that's pretty much it. I just would ask that you.
I just want to
I just don't want to see us moving the goalposts either. I think that's we're not those ideological people that think nothing can change, but I just think that this is just. I would imagine that if you move the start time, the same kids that are coming in late now are going to come in late. Thank you.
I just want to add one more thing. I'm sorry. We love the academic support, and I don't know where that plays into moving the start time. But again, because our children are busy and they have a lot after school, they thrive in that academic support, and they know that that's where they get their work done. Our daughter's on a private gymnastics team up in Riverhead where she's training multiple hours a week, traveling on the weekends, etc. And so she knows that's the time to get her work done. And so if this is in the dialogue in the future, I would really implore you to please keep that in some form or another, because I think that's important to all the kids. And I'm sure you've seen, how much it really helps all the children in the school. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will move into the educational meeting. And we will start with goal update number 2, review of the IB programs.
Yep, and I think Mr. Malone is gonna be, Mr. Malone's gonna, yeah, you're gonna go first, Mr. Malone. Yeah. We just changed it around a little. We did.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us a moment to just update you on one of the goals that was set at the elementary school, and it actually will give me an opportunity to talk about some of the collaboration that's gone on across the entire administrative team, Ms. Beckermas and my fellow administrators at Pearson. I brought and thank Ms. Prokosky for coming this evening. She's the reading specialist at the elementary school, and she's been an integral part of the success of a new assessment program that we've rolled out in the elementary school. So one of the key things we do throughout the buildings is monitoring student progress, specifically in the areas of ELA and mathematics, and then how we as administrators working closely with the teachers then take that data and inform our instruction. There are always students that need extra support as they're working to meet some of the standards and achieve some goals. What we have identified as a school district is a need for some students who have struggled with the acquisition of reading and how different interventions may be needed. So working with Ms. Beckermas and the administrators at Pearson, we've been very active in making sure that teachers at the elementary, middle school, and high school level are trained in various intervention programs. So we worked over this last year with the Wilson Just Words program, as well as the Orton Gillingham approach. And the teachers did an outstanding job of taking advantage of these training programs. And in fact, we were actually kind of ahead of our goal, thinking that we would put these interventions into place with the upcoming school year. We're actually able to utilize some of the time this summer. We've even instituted some screenings over the last couple of weeks so that we're prepared for using the time during the summer school program to help students strengthen their skills in reading and writing. I've mentioned in the past that we utilize at the elementary school the Ames Web progress monitoring in English language arts. This year, we wanted to take a closer look at the probing in mathematics. And while we found that the assessments were easily administered and did provide us with data in a very user-friendly way and something that down the line will allow us, I think, to target instruction better. One of the pieces we're wrestling with right now is the Ames Web probes have not yet fully been aligned with the Common Core, and we are utilizing the Common Core instruction in our building. So some of the data points that we're receiving are not allowing us to make the best decisions with regards to instruction. So while we like the format, and we know that with some of the changes coming down the line, we think this will serve us well, we're just going to continue to analyze the use of those probes in the area of mathematics. During one of the winter board meetings, I mentioned that we at the elementary school have made a shift from our DLL assessment program, which was utilized for years at the elementary school, to the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system. And at the early part of the years, we rolled this out at grades K1 and 2. We were actually able to this year train our third grade teachers and begin utilizing those assessments at grade 3. And now our goal is to move that to grades 4 and 5 with the onset of the new school year. So that K through 5, we're utilizing this benchmark assessment for all of the students in the area of reading, specifically reading comprehension. Just wanted to point out and thank the Board of Ed for always supporting this. One of the things we've learned, I think, you know, all throughout schools is professional development is outstanding, and you know, we can always learn a lot from different workshops or superintendent's conference days. But what's key is that we make sure this is ongoing for the teachers, especially when we're instituting something new. We want to make sure that that development is there to help throughout the whole rollout process and beyond. So what I'd like to do is ask Ms. Burkowski to just talk briefly about what this Fountas and Pinnell assessment system looks like, and at the classroom level, what a teacher would be doing when they're assessing a student using this assessment tool.
Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a question.
Sure.
So when you set out to do this, was it based at least partially on what some standardized test scores were? Was it kind of data driven?
The actual decision to switch
Right.
to it
Yes.
absolutely was. So we've utilized the Ames Web assessment tool to help us with the area of fluency in reading acquisition. One of the things that we've found is reading comprehension. Obviously, the key to reading for children was something that we needed to enhance our ability to see what students are gaining from the reading that they're doing. So we feel that this system actually aligns really well with both the Common Core standards, and therefore will eventually align with the test data that we receive in the summer from the ELA test.
So I don't think I asked my question correctly. Was this a result of that test scores maybe were not as strong as you wanted, so you said we need to enhance, or was it just that you felt like with the move to Common Core you needed to support it more?
The latter,
It was the latter. Okay.
absolutely. You know, it wasn't that the test scores were really fragile in any one area. We just wanted to ensure alignment with the standards. So, Ms. Picasso.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of what the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark system entails. It's an A through Z program, and what it does is it starts at level A in kindergarten, and it actually goes on up, and level Z, I believe, is like the beginning of high school, so this can be used in the middle school levels as well. And what it does is it starts kids off at a very basic level. Each teacher is given a kit depending on the level that they're teaching. So if they're in the lower levels, they get the first assessment kit. And each assessment includes a running record. So with every single level, you are listening to the child read to you out loud. And it kind of gives you that one-on-one time with that student to see how they're getting through text. And while the child is reading to you, you are able to make notes and analyze their miscues. As the levels progress and they get into the upper levels, essentially there's a switch point where kids start reading silently in their head. So what the Fountas and Pinnell system does is it has the kids read part of the text out loud to the teacher, and then there's a stopping point where they read the rest of the text silently in their head. After you finish having the kid read to you and then they read silently, there's always a comprehension conversation, which is lovely to just have this nice conversation about the text with the child. And how it's set up is it's set up with reading within the text, reading beyond the text, reading about the text, and it's scaffolded. The questions start out very basic, very general, and then they get into the deeper understanding, the deeper meaning. It allows kids to really think critically about the text. It allows them to really tap into those inferring skills. It allows them to make connections to the text. So you have this really great conversation going on with the students. And as you're having this conversation, you're jotting notes, they give you kind of a guideline of what to look for in the conversation. So you can kind of highlight things that the students say to you. And then after that, you score them on their conversation. There is an optional writing component that you do not have to give, but it is a nice extra piece because what we found is some kids may struggle having that oral conversation with you, but then you give them the written component and they're able to kind of show you what they know through the written. So you kind of have both to look at, was this child able to read this text, and were they able to understand and comprehend what the story was about? And then based on how they do with their accuracy, depending on how many miscues. You take their accuracy paired with how they scored on the comprehension conversation, and it gives you a little chart to determine whether the text for them is independent, instructional, or hard. And then based on that, you kind of gauge where you're going to go from that. And then Fountas and Pinnell has also laid out a beautiful kind of a timeline of what is sort of expected for students. So in kindergarten, it starts off with levels A through D. So a typical kindergartner by the end of kindergarten should be somewhere around a C, D, maybe even an E going into first grade. And then it progresses. And it, you know, the levels are longer at the lower grades because they go pretty rapidly, and then they get a little bit shorter. Like I think grades 4 and 5 are only 3 levels expected. Of course, you're going to have readers that are reading well into the next grade level. You're going to have kids that are reading in the level below. And that's the beauty of it, is that when you're working with these kids in guided reading, you take them where they're at and you just try to make movement with them. And hopefully over time, with interventions in place, that gap gets smaller. So we're enjoying it. It's been a great program. The teachers have been it's been a very positive response. I love doing it. The other option with it is after you do the miscues, you can actually look at the miscues to see what it is that a child is struggling with, and then that helps guide your instruction, as does the comprehension conversation. It comes with this great manual that, like, if you're working with a child at level J, it gives you so many ideas of what you could be working on with students in that group if they're at level J. And then for me, it also allows me, if a child comes up instructionally at, let's say, a level J, I can then put together a book list for those students to kind of go out to the library. Our public library now, they reached out to me, I think, in the fall, and they've leveled a lot of their books with Fountas and Pinnell system. You can go to the local bookstores. They're very familiar with Fountas and Pinnell. So it's a very universal system. And it helps guide children in the right direction for picking those just right books for them. And it's very, very informative for the teacher, because the teacher is sitting one-on-one and able to have this conversation and hear the kid read, and it really helps guide your instruction when you're working with them in reading groups. So it's been a great program, and I'm happy that, and I thank you for, you know, your support with bringing it into the classrooms. So thank you.
I don't know if there are any follow-up questions.
Yeah, she ran away from the mic really
Oh, I'm
fast.
sorry.
Yeah, I saw it. In case the board had
I
any
just want
questions.
to, once again, I do want to thank Kate, because the success of this rollout has been large in part to a lot of the work that she's been doing in support of the teachers in the classroom. So I really appreciate it.
I do have one question. So were you trained in the system, and then you went in, then you embedded yourself in the classrooms and helped train the teachers,
Yeah,
so that it's kind of teach the teacher, so to speak?
Yeah, we met with a
Excellent. That's
representative from Fountas and Pinnell who came out and kind of sold us on the program. And then they actually don't send anybody out for training. Everything is all web-based. So once you buy into the system, they give you this little access code, and you have access to their online resources at any time that you would like to make use of them. And then on their online resources, they have a vast amount of tutorial videos that show you detailed how to do every single part of the assessment. And that's essentially how we trained the teachers. We brought the teachers in during their curriculum times. And I think actually with grades K1 and 2, we did.
One of the superintendent's
Yeah.
comments today.
And then third grade, when we layered third grade in a month ago, we did it during their like a day long or a half a day long. And then we're going to continue to kind of tap into those videos as we use their curriculum times. And we'll do the same thing with fourth and fifth going forward into next year. But yeah, I've also been there just to kind of answer questions for them. Sometimes they'll watch me assess a student. You know, I just kind of do it as much as I can with different students. When I ever have a question about, okay, I really need to kind of pinpoint a child, I go to this assessment system. I'm like, you know what, let's try Fountas and Pinnell, because it gives you so much information about how a child is reading and how they're able to orally talk about a text.
And the great part too is that with assessments like this, you know, my sister is a reading teacher for 32 years, and 32 years ago, all the magic had to happen in the reading with the reading teacher. She had to fix everything, and her nickname was Professor Plum. And it took her almost 15 years to turn it around so the reading instruction actually primarily happened in the classroom, that you just didn't send every child that might be having a problem. So this gives all the bag of tricks to the teachers so they become the primary reading instructors, and they know where, and children can be really smart at not showing where they're struggling, or they can, kind of cover up. And so what's wonderful about these kind of assessments, all of them, the Ames Webb and the Fontes Pinnell, is you really get to see the full picture of the child and be able to know where their strengths are and where they're fragile and get busy around that specific area. Because they might have hyperlexia, they could be really fluent, but not have any comprehension.
And with the timing, when you're doing an Ames Web assessment, they're timed in a minute situation. But then you give them the Fontes and Pinnell, which is untimed. You're still checking for fluency because, there should be a fluid flow to how they're reading. But you're going to notice, okay, this kid really gets stressed out under a time constraint, but they're able to read the same level text in a non-time situation and get through it beautifully and have a very nice conversation with you, clearly showing that they understand what they're reading. So it does give you the two different ways to look at it. And we do look at that. We look at how are they performing on the Ames Web? How are they performing in the classroom on these Fontes and Pinnell assessments? So it does give you both things to look at.
It's great information.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Nichols?
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to talk primarily about the middle years program, but I thought before doing that I'd talk a little bit about the IB program analysis big picture and provide a little history for those of you who are not familiar with how the IB program came to Sag Harbor, and I'll try to do this in less than 3 minutes. The IB program right now at Pearson is comprised of the diploma program, which is offered to students in 11th and 12th grade. We will offer a more thorough analysis of that program in July into August, and the reason for that is the assessment results from the current cohort, which are the graduating seniors. We don't receive those numbers until July, in and around July 10th. When we get those numbers, we'll analyze those and place them within the context of the 3 previous classes that have graduated and provide some recommendations based on those numbers. So again, that analysis will come in early July. Regarding the IB program, for those of you who don't know, we first introduced the idea to the Sag Harbor community probably 9 years ago. And the process by which we adopted the IB program in Sag Harbor was not without controversy. It was 5 years of public relations and selling to get the program implemented in Sag Harbor. We had to sell faculty members, we had to sell community members, we had to sell board members, all of the above. Many people asked why abandon AP when we had spent the previous 10 years building the AP program from a program where we only offered 1 course when I arrived to a program where we had 13 AP offerings by the time we moved to IB. And the underlying answer to that was, I believed, along with others, that the IB program represented a step forward in terms of the education for our students and the opportunities that it would bring. So the program was adopted. This is the 5th year offering it, the 4th class going through as diploma candidates. About 4 years ago, we introduced the idea of looking at the MYP program, which is the middle years program, which comprises grades 5 through 10. Our thinking at the time was that if we could introduce a program at the middle level that would better prepare our students for success in 11th and 12th grade, that we could grow the participation rates in the diploma program and ultimately increase or improve the educational product 6 through 12. So along those lines, we sent roughly, I would say, 90% of the middle school staff to training in the middle years program. administrators, Ms. Miritas and myself, Mr. Guinan's been trained previously, have been to training addressing the MYP program. And tonight's presentation is going to summarize some of the developments in the MYP program, which change, in my eyes, the decision, some of the considerations in making the decision to either adopt or not adopt the MYP program. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Guinan and Ms. Miritas, who will touch upon some of those considerations and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. So I think, here we are. The original goal for looking at MYP, it predates me, but I'm pretty sure it's still the same goal that guides us, is to help prepare students for success in the IB diploma program and certificate courses, and also to increase participation, to set that ramp that we talked about that sets kids up for success ultimately in the diploma program. So tonight we're going to walk through our goal, which is enabling that greater access and performance in the IBDP, the diploma program, the valuable elements of the MYP, what we see as the components that serve that goal, certain potentially problematic elements that complicate it and don't necessarily serve that goal as far as we see it. Walk you through some changes that have occurred to the middle years program since we began pursuing it, and also look at some data, high-level data related to performance in the diploma program, and some of the financial implications related to pursuit of the MYP and ultimate adoption if we choose to do so. So how do we achieve our goal? For success and increased participation in the diploma program and course certificates, students need to be developing the skills and understandings in these areas. These are similar to the skills and understandings that the diploma itself develops in students. So it makes sense that the ramp goes up all the way to higher education. So we want to give students opportunities in the 6 to 10 time frame to develop these. And these are the really important things. One is that they begin to work with complex texts and begin to learn how to make sense of them, to read really rigorous texts, preparing them for the type of text that they'll encounter in the diploma program. For example, Guns of August in the history class, which is written at like a graduate level, history level, and the students struggle with. I tell them it's kind of like doing push-ups, though. They have to stay in the text and persevere. And building that courage to stay in the text and that grit to persevere is a big part of what we're after. In addition, familiarity with inquiry-based approaches to learning. So shifting to the idea that it's more about asking the right question sometimes than it is about having the answer. And a lot of the work we've done in MYP has been around planning for lessons that are more inquiry-based. Developing students' organization and time management skills. These are important because the workload increases significantly, and their ability to manage their own time and organize their own work is key to their success. Their writing proficiency. We're always working on that, but getting them to a point where they're more able to communicate themselves clearly and constructively in written form is very important. Familiarity with interdisciplinary approaches, which is key to the IB. So how do problems look from the lens of different disciplines? This is very much in the spirit of the International Baccalaureate, and it's a big part of the work that we have done with planning in grades 6 through 10. And also taking the principles of theory of knowledge, which is the core course for students in the diploma program, bringing that across the curriculum, so bringing that into different classrooms. This year on the Superintendent's Conference Day, we had some of the students who take theory of knowledge work with the teachers on the different ways of knowing, which are different ways they explore knowing. Theory of knowledge is at root a philosophy of knowledge course. It's epistemology. It examines claims to knowledge on their validity and different ways of knowing. It's very important for students in all of the disciplines to understand that there are different ways of constructing knowledge and different ways of evaluating it. So one of our goals is certainly to, over time, bring these principles of theory of knowledge across all the content areas. So some of the pros of the middle years program and what it brings is it requires common planning time, which is critical for that interdisciplinary approach, for teachers to work together and share that common knowledge as they plan inquiry-based instruction, inquiry-driven instruction, rather. It provides a framework for vertical and horizontal alignment, which is really that ramp that we talk about. It has a consistent philosophy with the diploma program, and the terminology is the same. So, for example, the learner profile that we talk about, which are the different aspects of the IB learner, such as risk-taking, knowledgeable, caring, reflective, communicating. The MYP requires interdisciplinary planning and content. It also requires lesson planning with review and reflection, making us more thoughtful planners. So we plan, we execute, we take stock and reflect on the progress our students have made and the success of the lesson, and tweak from there so that our planning is ongoing. And it requires external objective feedback on our program. That is one of the great values of the diploma program, is a good portion of the work is graded externally. And the work that we do grade here internally, we send out samples, so that's calibrated against a very high standard. It provides us great feedback on the quality of work we're giving and the quality of work that students are doing. And that objective third-party feedback is really important. I think this is you, right, Britt? I'm going to pass off to Ms. Maritas.
So we wanted to do the pros in a couple of different ways. So the lasting changes that have occurred because through the implementation, you can see faculty received, and Mr. Nichols talked about this extensive IB training, which is huge because then we're all aligned in our philosophy and instruction. There's grade teams have engaged in common planning time. This was already occurring 6 through 8, but we've obviously extended it, and that is helpful for us, especially in a small school because we're always talking. Departments engage in ongoing dialogue about the vertical trajectory, and we've done this, but now it has a little bit more of a guidance. And then curriculum instructional shifts to align with the IB demand so that we're hopefully getting more of those kids to access the diploma program and access more IB courses. The interdisciplinary units were developed by teachers and now are ingrained in the curriculum, which is huge, right? So we want those global perspectives, but also seeing how a math course and a science course can be interchangeable. And it's not just one or the other. And then the unit planning is ongoing with reflection. Pearson was already doing this through the UBDs, but now through the unit planning. So that was a shift. And then the staff and student philosophy and terminology, we're all now talking in the same language, and it doesn't feel disjointed between the two schools. So cons, what do we learn through the implementation? While we did this process, we've learned a lot, and the unit planners are a big deal in the authorization and becoming an IB MYP school. The unit planners are similar to the UBD format, which our staff was trained in and knew. However, the terminology and the shift, we feel the UBD is much more, I don't know how to put it, more in depth than the MYP and almost superior, we feel, and then the teachers also prefer the UBD. It aligns more with how they plan. The IB support dictated more than it's guided. So they let you know what structures you need to be in place, but how it's going to look. Sometimes that might not fit into our small school structure because we have teachers that are teaching high school and middle school together. The personal project component does not ramp up in the way we imagined. So after talking to other MYP coordinators and talking to other superintendents actually about their MYP program, the personal project is like this reflective piece where the students have to be involved in this process journal. They do a service as an action. They have to do a project. It could be a narrative essay. It could be field work, but it doesn't always align with what's actually going on in the classroom. And it's the reflection process is cumbersome, but also doesn't align with the extended essay and the creative action service that the diploma program has, which is a much more rigorous level than where our students probably could be at that 10th grade, that year 5, as IBMYP calls it. The assessment criteria are too rigid. Good teachers need flexibility with criteria. This was a shift that actually the IB put out. They used to have a different assessment policy, and now it's now graded 1 through 8 in each subject guide. So our grading policies would have to shift, and we'd also have to grade in the rubric format with our teachers, and that's a big shift. But also, teachers grade differently, and that's the beauty of teaching. And you want to make sure that you're accessing all of that, and that 1 through 8 format and providing what examples could be the assessment doesn't allow for the creativity in the classroom, which we love for our teachers to have. Small school scheduling challenge. This is always an issue, obviously, especially in Sag Harbor, but the contractual constraints prevent us from guaranteeing common planning time as much as we want that. So our middle school, our high school lunch is during 7th period. Our middle school teachers, a lot of them teach during that time. So that common planning time with a high school teacher when they have lunch doesn't happen. So the periods that you think are going to be open sometimes don't open up as you want them to. And it doesn't guarantee everyone will be there. There might be somebody, 1 or 2 missing, and you want everybody there to be a part of the conversation because that's really important to see those multiple perspectives. And then with the personal project administration, you want grade teams to meet, right? So due to contractual restraints and like how many periods we can ask teachers to come meet during the day during their preps, we have to limit who can be in what grade team. Even though people might be in 3 or 4 or even 2 or just 1 grade team, they can't go to all the grade team meetings that they want to. They might have to prep for their class. Lasting changes that have occurred. So what we've done as a candidacy school that now we have in place. So we took the good that IB has and we want to keep it, right? So the faculty received the extension IB training. Thank you very much to the Board of Education for supporting us in that. Grade teams have engaged in common planning time. They've talked about instruction, not just talking about kids and what's going on, but actually talking about the nuts and bolts of how to teach and what skills are needed in each grade level to progress to the next one. Departments engage in ongoing dialogue about the vertical trajectory. These are really interesting and enriched conversations because, for example, the science department, a kid's trajectory once they get into high school might be very different, but also what the science department talking about what skills are needed to, with the different disciplines. They are similarity, but there's also major differences, but also to talk about how to prepare them for it. Curriculum instruction shifts to align the IB demands. We have that, the learner profile, the global context, that common language, that terminology we talked about, the learning how to learn and learn how you are as a learner, that theory of knowledge base. The interdisciplinary units developed by teachers are now a part of our curriculum. And we're teaching that global perspective and teaching into learning about different lenses and thinking about the other perspective. And the unit planning is ongoing with the reflection component. We ask our staff to do that every year. And then the staff and student philosophy, now we're all on that common language. What do we learn during implementation? Did I go back? Sorry. Here we go. Added components after receiving candidacy. So while I was here, right, we've been to training, and then I went going back and talking to different MYP people. When we started, each department, what you guys call departments, or each discipline, like math, science, has a subject guide. Those subject guides were shifted once we started, and that was when I talked about the assessment criteria changing. And then they also implemented the idea to get a certificate of the e-assessments. This is a very cumbersome process, and also as a middle school, the concern with parents of being overassessed is a thing that we deal with every day, especially thinking about our opt-out rates and such. And I know in Sag Harbor, we want to make sure that we're teaching our kids and not thinking about overly assessing them and being behind a computer. The personal project was made mandatory for the certificate. It's cumbersome, but it's also what are we getting out of it that's going to be academically rigorous for our Pearson students. The approaches to learning expansions. This was just something that was a part of the unit planner. Now it has to be a discussion, and it's a very long list of things of how we teach and communicate and what skills we want our students to have for communicating, like how to collaborate with one another, how to make sure you are taking the right research and making sure that there's multiple perspectives when you're doing a discussion. All those things, it's very cumbersome, but also detail oriented, that when providing it to the teachers, they were obviously overwhelmed at first, and we needed to scaffold it to figure out a trajectory and plan one so that we knew that we were hitting it in each year. And then again, the assessment criteria shift, necessitating grading policies in 6 through 10. That's that 1 through 8 scale that I talked about, that each department would have to, and we were working on it and are, talk about how you're going to change to each assessment and how you're going to grade on a 1 through 8 scale, but how is that going to correlate to our 1 to 100? All right, so here's the synthesis. We talked about the cons, the assessments, the unit planners, the expansion, the personal project, the grading policy directive, the contractual issues with common planning time, the added cost with what's going on, and then the pros without formal MYP authorization that we've seen in our school building, which is awesome, is the common language. Our teachers are talking. They are talking about their instruction. They're reflecting on their instruction. They're wanting to improve their instruction because they're talking to their colleagues. The significant work accomplished on the interdisciplinary lesson, those are now ingrained in the curriculum. And the entire staff, as we said before, received and continue to receive the IB training. And then, of course, that common planning time that we try to get so that our teachers are talking to each other all the time and reflecting on their process. And then now I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Guinan to talk about the data through the phone program.
So the goal of the pursuit of MYP again was to increase access to the diploma program courses and to the program itself. And here we just want to go over high level how the program has performed. I enjoy this because I think this is a story of success. So in 12-13, there were no students receiving the diploma. There were only standard level exams given, exams in courses that are 1 year in length, which is why you see this smaller number there, and a slight skew in the 6th column, percentage of students scoring 4 or higher in that percentage. Then you see 13 and 14, that's the first cohort, and the number of students enrolled. And you see, again, in the 6th column, 76% of the students are scoring 4 or higher. And you had 8 diploma candidates, 5 diplomas awarded. In the next cohort, performance improves and access improves. And then in the next 2, you see a slight dip, not in performance, but in numbers. And that's because the size of those classes is smaller. The senior class right now, I think it's 53, maybe 54 students. It changes. And
just one word of clarification for those who don't know. Those who were familiar with the AP program, at the end of a course, you sat for a summative assessment that was graded 1 through 5. The higher the score, 5 being the best, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 was essentially a passing grade. With the IB, at the end of the course, there is a summative assessment that's graded 1 through 7, in addition to assessments that are administered or components of assessments that are administered. Essentially, a 4 is considered passing.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. You also see in 15-16, the last year for which we have the summative data, 80% of the students are scoring a 4 or higher. That is a healthy program. And 15 students went for the diploma, 12 received it. I think 2 of those 3 can be explained away with senioritis and not doing the CAS requirements. They did very well on their courses, on their exams. A stat that I think is particularly illustrative of how healthy the program is is that of those 12 students who received the diploma, 10 of them scored 31 or higher, which is above the international average, which is impressive. In 16-17, we'll have data for you soon. I look forward to sharing that with you in say 4 or 6 weeks. Yes?
Question. The total number of assessments, it looks like it's 50 to 60% of the time the student who's sitting for a class takes an assessment. Is that typical of this program?
Yes, because of the higher level exams.
Mm-hmm.
There's also students who take visual arts where there isn't a summative assessment.
You only take it the second year.
Yes.
So it's not 60% of those available to take the exam. It's that the first year there's no exam to take.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. That
And
makes
there's
sense.
also no exam in visual arts.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So that those students are enrolled but not taking an
Right.
assessment. So here is the story of the diploma program over the past 5 years. So you see next year, right now, we have 36 students set up to do the diploma program.
That's the current 10th grade.
That's the current 10th grade.
Yes.
Added insight on that, just so you can appreciate the numbers. The taught with cohort 1 and cohort 2. That was circulated throughout the school community, which really limited the number of participants. Now that we're entering the end of year 5, the realization that it's doable has resulted in more students access it next year.
Which I think is a function of people knowing, having better information about it and understanding it better. And also seeing different students go through it and benefit from it tremendously. And realize that this is not just something that benefits the most elite students. Students make tremendous strides. All students who are looking forward to success in higher education can benefit from taking on this challenge and have done so. Here's just another look at pass rate and average score in one of the core courses. History of the Americas is a higher level course, so it's a 2-year history course taken by all of the diploma candidates, as well as some other students who choose to challenge it as a certificate course. And performance is increasing over time. So we're doing well. And also, I wanted to share with you the extended essay, too, because I think that this is important. The extended essay is something that students who challenge the diploma do, along with taking the Theory of Knowledge course and completing the creativity, action, and service requirements. So the extended essay is a college-level research term paper that the student does. It's about 15, 16 pages. On a topic of their choosing. They do the research. They have faculty support, but it's really them putting together all of the thinking that they're doing as a result of all of the courses they're taking and the interdisciplinary study and the inquiry-driven approach and coming up with a question they want to answer and pursuing that and writing a research paper. And our scores have increased, which to me is a very good sign. Again, directionally doing very well. So this is that was just a look into the diploma program, into how well things are going, which we'll look a lot deeper. But I think the health of the diploma program is something to consider in this MYP analysis. And here we have the financial implications. Do you want to walk through?
All right, so just like the diploma program, there's an annual fee that we need to pay. We do get a discount because we are a diploma program, so that's that $9,800. The cost for a certificate, right? If we're going to do the program, we want our students to receive certificates because it's an all-inclusive. That's why we liked the MYP. Everybody's going to be involved in it. from the struggling learner to the academically elite learner. Registration, so that cost of the certificate is at the 10th grade year. The registration per student is $50 per student, and the e-assessment per student is $74. That goes with all the disciplines that they're going to be assessed in. So it's not just the core classes; those are going to also be in design and technology. And then at full proposal, right, with everybody involved, if you're going to do that 6 through 10, that's that $200,000 per year for the implementation, which is a hefty number. And then also, because we're doing a personal project, just like in the diploma program with the extended essay and the CAS, we're most likely going to need a coordinator to organize all those process journals and make sure every student's going in the different stages of that by picking their project, then also making sure their process journals are handed in on time, making sure they're outlining the whole entire project. And that's where there will be mentors, just like in the extended essay, to oversee that as well. And then an e-assessment coordinator, because just like testing, it's going to be a lot to implement, especially with the technology of being e-assessed. So that's what we have for you guys, so that you get a better view of what's going on. We've gotten a lot of great things out of it, and I think those great things can still happen. Second question?
Yeah. Can you quantify the e-assessments when we talk about more assessments, and how many assessments are we talking about? How long is each assessment?
7 to 9, depending on the year. And then also the
7 to 9 more assessments per year?
Yes.
Now, would that replace like the teacher's unit test?
Possibly. Yeah, it could be to the end of the year final. At the end of the year. So remember, the high school students are already taking Regencies, so they would take a Regents and then also take this as well.
I think it's important to note that when you guys first began to pursue MYP, there were no assessments. So it's something new. So it's maybe a moving target to say how many there will be getting into the assessment business.
And the 10th grade year, if you think about it, what Regencies they're going to take, a 10th grader might be extremely assessed, in the sense that if they were on the track for math, they're going to be taking Algebra 2, they're going to be taking a science, and they're also going to take the Global 2. So that's 3 Regencies with these assessments as well.
But they would be doing that in 10th grade anyway.
Yeah, they would be.
Our debate here really is whether you're
assessing the
going into the middle years. So you really like the 200. I'm sorry. Are you done?
No, go ahead.
So I won't be a hypocrite. I am not an educator nor an administrator, and I certainly would never have an opinion as to what you should do in the school, because I sell commercials for a living. But the 200, there's a couple of things that bother me, only because I felt, and I was vocal about this before, I felt like we promised that we were going to roll out IB in the middle school, and we've been talking about it for 3 years, and now we're going, oops. So, and it's okay if we don't, but I think we need to be clear as to why. So if somebody really paid attention, they would go away with this. The school's too small, the schedules conflict with lunch, and we don't know how to switch grades from 1 to 8 to 1 to 100.
No.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I think that from the very beginning, in broad terms, the significant difference between the MYP program and the BP program was that the MYP program was much more process-oriented. I pointed that out to the board from the very start. So the BP program, you have a summative assessment that's administered at the end. You have some guidelines, you've got some assessments that are administered throughout the year, and some program components. But for the most part, teachers are free to approach the course within the structure that's given to them. So there's still a lot of freedom there. The MYP program is much more hands-on in terms of the IBO organization coming in and saying, you've got to have these things in place in terms of meeting times, and they make these statements without regard or contractual limitations that exist with bargaining units and those kinds of things. So I was aware of that when we started the investigative process 4 or 5 years. What's changed since then is that the intensity of their hands-on nature has been ramped up even more. So that they've introduced these new e-assessments, which is a new thing. They've expanded upon the approaches to learning, which is a document that guides what's supposed to happen, and have made demands that that document and its tenets be integrated into everything that happens. So the global perspective at this point is this has become an all-consuming endeavor if we're going to move forward with it. My opinion at this point, and again, the board can decide which way to go, is that there are many more negatives now than there were even 2 years ago with the changes. And at the end of the day, the lens that I'm looking at is, are we able to increase participation and ramp up effectively to TP without the MYP? And if we don't go with MYP, are our students at a disadvantage? And the answer to that is yes, we can prepare them. And in my opinion, no, we're not at a disadvantage without it. That's the best summary.
And that was perfect. Now follow me for 2 more questions, and then I won't lose sleep over it tonight. The $200,000 is false because some of it's the high school, which we would be doing 9 to 12 anyway, right?
What do you mean?
There
No.
an estimated cost for 200.
That's
Correct
so
me. It's
what's
okay.
no, it's okay. So what's happening is the e-assessments are getting rolled out slowly right now.
Right.
So currently the e-assessments are just for the 10th grade, but they're going to tailor it down 6 through 10. So we did the current enrollment of how much it would cost in full effect, which is 388 students, give or take. Now that a couple of students have moved and we might have gotten one, so I might be a little off for our 6 through 10 enrollment. So around 388. That was the 200,000. That was
Okay, so that doesn't count the 11 and 12 that we would pay for
Yes.
and continue to do anyway.
Yes.
Perfect. Humor me 1 more minute. Wait a minute. I lost myself here. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. It'll come back.
So what we're looking at as far as finances, so I understand.
Yeah.
$200,000, plus a project coordinator, plus project mentors, and a possible e-assessment
Yep.
coordinator, and professional development for teachers ongoing.
Yes, we haven't even added that.
Yeah, I would say conservatively, that you've also got to look at the coordinator time as well. You're probably talking about another 50,000 for many of the things that you talked about. So
Okay.
in addition to that 200,000, between professional development, the coordinator, various stipends that come along with it, and some unrelated assessment fees that generally pop up. You're probably looking at about 250.
In terms of the budget, what do we currently have in our budget that's been passed already for next year for this program? Does anybody know?
So right now we have the annual fee that's in the budget, which would enable us to continue the authorization process. We have some funds set aside for a site visit, part of the authorization process. And we've got professional development funds, 6 to 12, that are earmarked towards ID. So roughly 90% of our professional development monies are have been earmarked for ID and will continue to be.
Wouldn't change
earmarked for
anyway.
ID. That's about $35,000.
So then this is additional cost that is not currently in the budget, so that
It's in the budget.
the 200,000?
In the budget you just passed, yes.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I don't think so.
It is, I think, I'm pretty sure.
Katie, do you know if it is?
I'm like,
I do without.
it's not.
Okay, so
Okay.
you're probably right then.
I don't think it's for that. No.
Okay.
We gave the number. So the e-assessment stuff when talking to, remember we had a consultant and I talked to her
Yeah.
every 2 weeks on the phone. This is like brand new and they're just starting it in their school that's been an MYP school for a while. And she said it's a cumbersome process and has been very transparent about how it's costly. Everyone has to get on the network. When you sign in, you might not all be, your network might boot you. It hasn't been working efficiently. So she has been transparent that it's because it's been rolled out and how much other cost she's been adding. That's why where we got all that.
Yeah,
So, and that's why we had to add it afterwards. Like, that's not added afterwards. That's why it wasn't embedded in the budget, because we had to be put off on our authorization process because of the new stuff that's being added.
all these added. That's why I'm asking
Yeah.
to say that because the tipping point may be not only the implication of implementing it, but also do we even allocate the funds? Because that's it's not $10,000. It's $20,000 is a lot of money. So it would be good to confirm that.
Do you have more questions?
I can wait.
I just had one more question about the assessment criteria. One of the cons that you listed was the assessment criteria were too rigid, that good teachers need flexibility with criteria to meet students' needs. In my mind, I think sometimes having a standardized assessment is a way to measure up, to make sure that, to see how our kids compare with other kids that are going through the same experiences. So can you expand a little bit on why you
So
feel
that's
that?
even talking about, what I'm talking about is too rigid, meaning the formative and summative assessments that are happening in instruction. So they give examples of what they want to see in your classroom. So a creative teacher that might do a project-based learning, for example, Miss Westhoff did capture the equation in her math class and counted that for kids that needed a kinesthetic movement to learn how to solve combine terms with using equations. That wasn't in part of the stuff. There were specific things that you needed to pick from. It's a list of stuff to pick from in your unit guide.
For
and
your
that
daily formative assessment, not the summative
assessment. And no, but for both. So with that, good teachers think outside the box and are creative, and we want them to continue that creation. We don't want to stifle it.
So it sounds like your recommendation is to use the guiding principles in learning and continue to be committed to that, but not actually sign up and commit to the formal program. Is that accurate?
And that recommendation also comes with the added consideration, which is that the majority of our diploma level teachers, they're very cognizant of what it is that the students are going to be expected to do in high school, and they're able to start to ramp up and keep using that term at the middle level. So Miss White-Dunn teaches 7th grade social studies and history of the Americas. Miss Farrell, Mr. Holden, Miss Archer, and Miss Bianchi all teach courses grades 6 through 10 in English and have taught diploma level courses in literature and soon to come composition. Mr. Schumacher, Mr. Schulman,
Mr. Garvey,
Mr. Barron's, Ms. Stellato have all taught middle level science courses and diploma level science courses. And in the math department, similar types of situations. So I think that it's one of those situations where if we had a separate high school, the need might be even greater to go MYP and deal with some of these obstacles that are somewhat new. But the fact that we're a 6 through 12 building and the staff is shared, I think gives us a little more flexibility in terms of
So are you looking to get a decision made by the board tonight about whether to go forward or not with this? Is there a certain time that the decision has to be made?
Well, hang on. Does anybody else? I still have more questions. Tommy John, I think you had a question.
I do, and part of it's a comment. I'd like to congratulate the administrators and the teachers for the gains that we have made. I think you're certainly moving in the right direction. This is great. Do you foresee that trajectory to continue? It's hard to say, I'm sure, but
well, it is hard to say, but I think that that what I said previously regarding a lot of the initial talk program and resulting limited participation, that has sort of passed. And the realization or the collective opinion in the school community is that the program is much more accessible than it was 3 or 4
right.
years ago. When I first brought the program here, I had pointed, not me, when the team of us had first brought the program here, we had pointed to goals of having between 50 and 75% of our students sitting for the diploma, which is the most rigorous course of study internationally. I think that's without debate. Next year, at 34, 33, students signed up right now. We're tentatively right around.
We're at 36.
36, right around 50%. If we could approach 50% for the next 5 years, I would be thrilled. That's a rate that compares favorably with many high-quality international schools.
Agreed.
How many though drop out? I'm sorry, I'm not
Very-
causing trouble, but you
No,
got
it's okay.
36 enrolled for the current 10th graders
Yeah.
going into 11. So between 11 and 12, Mike,
Right.
do you lose some?
You do.
And I think that that would be similar. Like I have a son who's in 11th grade, as does Mr. Malone. If the student signs up to take 10 AP courses over 2 years, there's a possibility that
They're gonna fall out
they
of.
might drop out of 1 or 2.
Got it.
I think for us, the goal is to make sure that we ask the question, what are the supports we can put in place that make that less likely? Struggling, he or she can access the resources and the help they need to stay in the course.
But the research is interesting because the research says even a child attempting to take an IB or an AP course, just even experiencing it, even if they are not successful, is just like taking a child on a college visit. They liken it to that because they've been exposed. And you know, in their mind, the brain doesn't remember pain or pleasure. That's why we repeat it over and over again, is that then they were like, you know what? That wasn't so bad. The child doesn't have those regrets like, oh, you know, I didn't complete it. They actually sort of feel those regrets like, I could try that again. That they were inside that classroom, and then they start in their brain trying to figure out how they can do that. Just like you do in sports. When you don't make that layup, you start figuring out how you can go back at it again. Just the experience of being in that classroom neutralizes their fears of entering that classroom again. Just like why we take children on college visits. The first couple times, it's terrifying for a child that's never seen a college campus. But by the third college campus, they're starting to evaluate, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe I like this college more than that college. So even attempting a AP or an IB class and even not being successful, it lets them know that if this is on par with a college class, I can probably do a college class. I can do that. The research is interesting because you'd think it would make them more fearful, but it actually makes them feel like it's possible for them because you've exposed them. The exposure is more important.
Do you guys have any questions?
No, I thank the administrators for the excellent presentation because, as you know, my fellow board members and I thought we were going down this road. So to see the change at this point, but to see, you know, all the information, research that went into why the change is being recommended is very helpful.
I had another question. I was just wondering, as we've been going through this process, the teachers have gotten professional development. We've kind of restructured our planning time and the way we think about lesson planning and those sorts of things. Talk me through how that looks moving forward if we abandon MYP. In other words, are they going to let us continue to participate in professional development for all of our middle school teachers, or would it only be the ones that cross-pollinate with the high school, or will we continue to have those structures in place?
So the participation in that's always open. That's recognized.
They don't restrict that?
And then the structures, we extended it 6 through 10 and then 6 through 12 for grade teams, which is really important. Departments will still be meeting like we always do. And now that we have a little bit of an understanding and focus on what's best practices in departments, we can talk about that. As I talked about, the MYP unit planner is similar to the UBD, which our teachers were trained in and we thought were more superior. We can go back to that in those discussions and talk about those components in grade teams and departments, which is very important. The common planning time with same content, same teachers are still happening. And I think they're happening more now because they see how the benefit of doing that. You see teachers talking in classrooms more. And I think those big structures and those big rocks are extremely important and necessary in a school.
In the same with the interdisciplinary approach,
yes.
And the inquiry-based approach?
You've definitely seen a shift in instruction and curriculum here.
What's their favorite class?
In what grade?
In IP.
Theory
Now,
of
follow them. It's going to be theory of knowledge, right? They get in there and they think it's the
I
coolest
think it's
class, or am I
dependent on
wrong?
the kid.
It depends on the
It's
child.
obvious, it's not.
It depends.
And also students take different teachers differently, and that's
Well, I only okay. So you didn't follow the witness too good. So
sorry.
what I hear from all of them is that the theory of knowledge class is the coolest thing, and a lot of them say that to me. So I was just throwing it. I mean, I have an MBA and the diplomas on top of my washing machine, and I can't tell you one class I took in however long that took me, except for the cool philosophy teacher I had that I thought it was a great class. So I was just wondering if you could stick that somewhere in middle school as a class. I don't know.
Always an idea.
July presentation on the diploma program, proposed additions to the program, both within grades 11 and 12, but also in the grades leading up. We can have some specific recommendations. Those recommendations are in line with to some extent.
I love it.
You beat us to the punch.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board for our administrators?
I just wanted to know were there any formal next steps that needed to be taken or
Not taken.
not taken? I assume, Katie, that you're in concert with your team about not moving forward with this formally.
I think it really is the board's decision. I think that they can give their worries and their concerns, but I know that you've been in deep with this. With moving towards this, so I still think it is a board decision. What stayed my biggest concern was that if we made the investment in the middle years program, our authorization hangs on these e-assessments, and that if our students don't participate, which I wrestle with you guys know how hard I work to get our opt-out rate down. I meet with parents and try and get them to take that, because I do believe in our New York State assessments, because it does give us information about how we progress. And our parents, of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are just not ready to, because those assessments weren't giving good information back to parents. So parents were like, I'm not doing that. I can see this being, they're not ready for high stakes testing until about 9th grade. That's when they're really ready to look at high stakes testing. And I just wonder if parents looked at this as, and I don't know that yet. If our parents viewed this as high stakes testing and they opted their children out of the assessments, then our middle years, we wouldn't then qualify I'm assuming if we didn't have enough assessments and they didn't have enough data to look at, we'd be throwing good money after bad. Our investment wouldn't be worth it. And that, being a fiscal conservative, that would drive me crazy. So, there I am.
So your recommendation is?
To let the board decide.
But it's educational.
But that would be
we're
my-
not educators.
We're not doing
We're
it.
not educators.
We're going to follow the leaders.
She's an educator, that's why I'm asking her.
Exactly.
Well, I think I would look at the analysis that we get back in August. But right now, based on this, I think your educators are saying that they are very, very concerned. But we are going to look at the full analysis in August to see how our students performed. I think we're going to see good results from that. And the reason we wanted the MYP program was to build up those results. I think you're seeing it without the implementation of the MYP program.
What's our deadline? When does the board have to make a decision?
Before authorization.
Okay.
We'll get that information. Not today. Not before the next board meeting.
Okay.
So we don't need to make a decision in the next
No.
2 weeks.
Usually that's what she's doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. At this time, we move on to later start.
It's upside down. That's what I keep doing.
Well, board members will want to pull off their last page to be able to look at the options. Because that would be on the screen. 3.
So, so are we taking a break or are we going
No,
straight?
you
through?
go ahead.
All right. So I've been talking a lot. So Matt, why don't you start?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this evening, what Mr. Nichols and I hope to do is just update the board and the community with regards to the timeline that we had, I think, launched back in late February or March with regards to the district's investigation of the late start concept. We started the meeting this evening discussing just that issue. When we started to take a look at this endeavor, 2 areas were identified as being in need of further discussion, further analysis, and over the last few months, Jeff and I had presented to the board and the community our findings with regards to how a later start at Pearson, specifically an 8:00 a.m. start, would interface with our transportation program as well as the athletics program. And both of those presentations were reviewed here and are available to the community online. As we identified back at the beginning, our next proposed step was to design a survey which would allow us to gather feedback from the key stakeholders in the community, the parents, as well as the faculty and staff members. So we did develop some questions. Over the course of that drafting of questions, we have received some great feedback from the Board of Education, and most recently we shared that outline of a survey with our public relations resource, which is the Syntax Company, and they have come back to us with a survey that is getting close to being ready for distribution, formatted in such a way that we believe would be user friendly and would provide us with some important data, which we would then come back and share with the Board of Education. So our hope is to be able to finalize that survey tool, send it out no later than the 10th of June, which would be this coming weekend, and then giving the stakeholders about a week to weigh in. We could theoretically come back with some preliminary data at the next board meeting, which would be June 19th.
Want to ramp the survey? So what Mr. Malone and I did, and we're by no means survey experts, was we tried to review existing later start surveys that were administered in other districts. And I'm going to turn this off so people can see. And we tried to select questions that we thought were worth asking here in Sag Harbor. The goal of all of this is, from my perspective, to gather community input and make sure we hear from the whole community regarding their thoughts and wishes with regard to start time. And I learned this lesson a long time ago that in Sag Harbor, that what you hear isn't always what the community wants, so it's very important to assess that. And I learned that probably like 7 or 8 years ago when I wanted to switch the prom transportation from limousines to mandatory busing because I thought it was safe for everybody. And I ended up surveying the parents, and 80% of them said they didn't want that at the time. And I thought it was going to be the opposite. So I think it is very important to assess where the community stands. And at the same time, sort of present to them the research in an objective manner that's out there that they can that can further inform their decision. So the questions that we asked, you guys can read them for yourselves. You want to scroll down, Scott? And this is a standard format in terms of what other districts have utilized in terms of the choices. And then what we did was we moved on to trying to present basically a summary chart of Mr. Malone, what Matt and I presented earlier regarding transportation impacts, costs, and the impacts on athletics. So if I'm going to go up here for a second because I can't see that there. What it talks about with the various options. Again, this can be tweaked, but if it is tweaked, we've got to do it quickly if we're going to get it out by the 10th of June. Option number one is basically leaving everything the same. The middle box would say there's no real impact on transportation. And then the athletic program impact, we just summarize how the current release time impacts athletics. And there are 22 contests that occur during the year where students have to leave during academic support. There are 11 contests requiring students to leave during ninth period, and there are 7 contests where students have to leave school earlier than ninth period. Option number 2, and I won't go through all these because it's pretty laborious, but option number 2 is moving the high school to 8 o'clock, and the elementary school basically stays the same. And what we're saying here is that we would need 5 additional buses in the afternoon. We've gone over this before. The approximate cost, and there are 2 options there, either contracting out or purchasing buses. A conservative estimate, it's likely to be more than this, is $400,000. That's assuming about $80,000 a bus. To purchase is about $100,000 a bus. And then on this side, again, we see that in doing that, the number of contests impacted goes from 22 to 113, requiring students to leave during academic support. Requiring students to leave during period 9 goes from 11 to 31, and the 7 remains the same. So basically, I won't go through all of them. There are 5 options that are listed there that provides a pretty wide net in terms of what we can do. And ultimately, we're asking the community to weigh in on which option they prefer.
Right.
So it's a mix of general questions, and then at the end, asking them which option they
Right.
prefer. Personally, I wanted to go with not really presenting this last piece, but because of time, we've got to sort of get to it a little bit. My whole thinking all along was to be very, very objective and process, get all the information in a very measured manner, and then maybe down the line we could do something like this. But we really were charged with this 2 months ago, or thereabouts, and there's been a sentiment that there has to be a decision, and if we're going to do that, I think we actually have to ask this type of question sooner rather
And get to
Jeff, could you go back to option number 5 because there's no cost implication at all on the busing? Is that correct? Am I reading
Be
correctly?
careful on that one, Sandy. It looks like a typo.
That's why
Let me
I'm
read
asking.
it for a second. So this should read option number 5.
Yeah.
It's not filled out.
$40,000 above it, I think, is supposed to be down.
Well, the high school is going, middle school, high school, 755. I think that was meant to be 750 to 251. Okay? 750, that's a typo. It should be 750. 750 was the middle ground.
Hold on. 750. Okay, and there's no cost to that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because that solution, what we did is we moved to 750, and Mr. Malone moved his time back 5
slightly,
minutes.
right? And then we could utilize the buses that we use.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does the elementary school go in at? Because it doesn't say there. So the elementary school would go at 8:40 minutes.
Currently we begin at
8:35.
8:40. No, currently we begin at 8:45.
45. Okay.
So
it goes
it's
back to
potentially an
8:30.
8:50
to
versus end of the day currently 3:20, and it would be 3:25
okay. Thank you.
potentially.
Just so I have it correct, we can
But you're not, that's not final. You see how it's missing, Matt?
Yeah, I do.
I have another question on this, just for clarity. Thank you for this. It's very helpful to see it in the chart form. How many teams do we have? What is it? 62 or 64 teams in total?
We're counting middle school.
Well, this counts middle school contest. When you use the contest data, you're counting middle school.
Yes.
So then, yes.
We have to also factor in shared sports.
Right.
Factor that in as well.
I don't know what this factors in. So that's a question for Jeff.
One of the pieces that's important is at the beginning of the survey we did include for anybody that would sit and take this this survey tool the presentations that we presented, which are very specific with regards to for example, the athletic program impact. Those numbers that we note are specific to the fall season. We just use that as a kind of to give us the picture of what would happen, and we wanted to use something that we had already been through. So we use fall 16.
The chart is just fall season numbers.
It's using fall 16 numbers, 2016 numbers, and applying it forward.
I thought, Eric, is that correct, or was it all year? I thought it was all year.
Should be all year.
113, Eric, contests requiring students to leave academic support.
I think it was.
Right. That was 16 fall.
That's not on the screen, so you can't see it.
I have it in my.
Yeah, I think if you check that link, if it's live.
The athletic.
I think here's what I can speak to this. What I had asked Mr. Bramoff to do was to go through all the time that Pearson students, I think in the last calendar year, had been required to leave early, and to know specifically what time it is that they left. You provided a chart.
It wasn't the last calendar year. I believe it was for the fall of 2015. It's 16.
Okay.
It would be the fall of it would be actually the fall of 2015, but the previous fall.
Okay, so then it was Ms. Malone's right, and that's what it was.
All right, because I think whatever data is in here needs to be easy for someone who doesn't sit through these meetings to know what this says.
Correct.
So if that's just fall, people seeing it might think it's the entire year.
No, it's a good point.
Secondly, there's just three things around the data, because I think the data will be jarring to a lot of people, so it's important for it to be really transparent so people understand what it is. So if it's the whole year, also how many teams is it? Because if it's, let's just say it's 200 contests, but that's spread across, I'm making these numbers up, 64 teams, and then the average team, it's once a season. If they saw this, they may not think it. I'm sure it's more than that. I'm just using that as an example.
I think if you go to, and obviously we can't bring it up right now, Scott. This presentation is pretty detailed.
Yeah, but it wasn't it wasn't clear, and that wasn't that detailed in that presentation. And then the last thing was, because this was a question at that meeting, but it's not transparent here, is when it talked about leaving late, I remember someone saying, could that even be 5 minutes? And you had said, yeah, sometimes it's just 5 minute difference.
Right.
That again, looking at this, so I just think we have to be really careful that if people look at this data, they're not jumping to the wrong conclusion in either way. Because we haven't, if we're counting on them looking back at all the presentations, I'm guessing most people aren't going to click through all the presentations.
Right.
They're not. Secondly, in a lot of the surveys that are given out there, and I'm not advocating for or against when I bring this up, I just took a look at the surveys, and I think Susan had brought this up.
I'm looking for it. Yeah, she said it correctly.
Is that in the beginning of the surveys that they do reference the data, and that's why this is being given. They reference that the American Pediatric Association and this, have made this recommendation based on scientific evidence.
Right.
That's why we are surveying to see if we should do this. But just putting that, because most people, they may think they know this, most people don't know the research. They don't know that it's actual science.
Probably the document that I would reference, and you shared this with us with regard to
Right.
their introductory paragraphs that cover that. I think we should do it,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be sensitive to the fact that within the context of these board meetings, there have been many people citing evidence that there are other factors other than sleep that also impact.
Sure.
So I don't want to get into putting 40 different links in there.
No, I agree with you, and you don't want to put in stuff that people aren't going to read because then they don't read any of it. We want to have a good response rate to this so we can really measure what the community thinks.
Maybe we can look at the Garden City document. I think they did a nice job.
I think they did American Pediatrics, CDC, and one other. They kept it to like 3.
Yeah, because in our presentations this year, we've not presented the research very much at all, and so if people were going to go back, they wasn't part of. In many districts, when they're discussing this, they do have sessions that look at the research and talk about it, and we haven't really done that here. So if people go back, they're not going to see that.
Right.
Just to be clear, in terms of athletics, when we were asked to survey the fall season, that fall season was chosen because that would probably have the biggest impact. We have the largest amount of sports offerings. You would see a rapid decline in that during the winter season.
Okay.
In fact, the majority of the time in the winter season, the only time you would be happen to leave early would be for a playoff of some sort, and that very, very rarely happens. And also in the spring, we do offer substantially less sports than compared to the fall. You would also see a pretty steady decline in terms of the number of different teams that have to leave.
Right.
So it would definitely, if you were going to rank them, it would impact the fall the most.
Right.
And then it would be the spring, and then would have a minimal effect on the winter.
I just think whatever we do needs to be as transparent as possible. That's all, and not misleading in either direction.
Absolutely. So just for clarity for us as we move to continue editing this survey tool, a combination of presenting some of the key research papers or links, but also like a synopsis at the beginning is what I'm hearing.
The other thing that I might suggest is I know that when I'm looking at this spreadsheet, it takes a while to digest what the differences are because you're kind of looking along at the boxes trying to see, okay, what makes this run different than that run? So I'm thinking like if instead of option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, option 5, it had a name that kind of gave it its snapshot. So like option 1 is no change, right? So option 4 is flip-flop elementary school and high school. So that like at a glance, when I'm looking at that list and I'm saying which ones I like and which ones I don't like.
You gotta come up for names of the other ones though.
Exactly. That's my point. So, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what's going on here. So option 2, the elementary is the same and the middle high is at 1, but you've got 2 separate bus runs in the afternoon, which is why we need a second fleet of buses, right? That's the main.
Which Susan says no. Susan's adamant that you
No,
don't
for
need.
if we're going to run them separately, then we would. That's why the 5 buses
Right.
on that one, right?
Right.
But the one that Susan's talking about is option 3, where we combine the bus runs only in the afternoon, so we don't need 5 extra buses because we're putting the kids on the same bus only in the afternoon, but not in the morning.
Put combined buses.
Right.
So to your point, when we, I believe when we shared the transportation presentation, we did kind of title those
You did.
options that way, like a shared run,
Right.
or no change, or-
Right. Exactly. Like a shared afternoon run, separate, whole separate fleet.
So we can definitely go back to that.
And that's how we did it when we did the Stella Maris.
Well,
It
and
made
that's
it
what I was
easier for
thinking.
people
A
to
little more
weigh in.
user-friendly.
Yeah.
Because when you went to the option, they had a name.
It's a little bit.
And you knew what
Yeah.
you
Okay.
You know what you were looking at and thinking about.
So timeline wise, we will hope to get this out by the 10th.
Yeah, which would give us,
5 days.
trying to give everyone a full week to weigh in, and then we could come back to the board on the 19th.
We'll get that introductory paragraph.
To the board, and,
Do links to the research, right?
You have to do any changes with regard to the chart?
Just be able to fill in the details.
So we're hearing the chart presentation idea is a good one.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing just, we need to fine tune the language and,
And you have to fix box number 5.
Right.
and
And then
the
I would
sports
also
financial
add in option number 2, the fact that it is separate bus runs for the elementary school and the middle high school is why we're saying that option requires all 5 buses as opposed to option 3 where you put them all on the same bus and we only require 1.
Correct.
And I do think you have to be more transparent with the sports box.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
and this is a technical question about syntax. So, Katie, you may know the answer to this. There are many times, I know districts that have done this. I'm not advocating for it, but many times they've gone and they've had a research company field the research because there's a real science to how you write questions to get at the information you're looking to get at. Regardless of what the answer is, you want to make sure you get the. Does Syntax have research people inside that are helping us? I know they're a good PR firm, but research is very different than PR.
I know they have a very strong media based, and they work with probably over 60 to 70% of the school districts on Long Island, and they
Right. No, I know media is
in,
strong. I just didn't know if they had any real strong research background.
I just know that they develop surveys for school districts all over Long Island. They didn't develop the Garden City one, but I thought it was one of the strongest surveys I've looked at.
I think they work with the research company.
Yeah, well, I'm going to steal from them. I
Good.
found out from Syntax you can steal from
There's
them.
no reason to recreate the wheel, right?
Yeah, it turns out you
Absolutely.
can steal surveys.
Exactly. It's a good idea.
So to your point, Chris, on the last row of our spreadsheet that has like the contests and things like that.
Approximation fall 2000.
So we would say fall, and then we would say leaving early by at least 5 minutes to kind of paint the picture that it's.
I wouldn't even.
Yeah, I think that I was just talking to Matt, and I was brainstorming while we were going over this, that Matt and I could actually do a video. Dave should be involved as well, going over the chart. That would probably keep it to 5 to 7 minutes. Provide a pretty clear description of the various options.
That would be the coolest thing.
Just to give
Put
the
it on
background.
YouTube, and the kids will make you famous.
How many people are going to spend 30 or 40 minutes going through this?
Snapchat, Instagram, your pictures will be all over school with the green pants.
I think it's whatever you guys want to do.
I think it's a good idea because to try to put it in words succinctly is challenging.
Yeah, I agree.
To type it out, it gets very.
I think people would love
Any objection to have them putting a video?
I think that's a great idea.
Right.
All right. So is the thinking then, as far as timeline, that we would get the results back by the next board meeting, and then we could make a decision as to what to do with that information?
Yeah, it made sense to us that to get the survey out and provide about a week for people to take the survey. That seemed reasonable if you're in agreement.
Yeah.
Is this the survey is for all community members to take, or for parents to take, or who's the population?
Our thought was the parents and the faculty and staff.
Okay.
But
And then we also thought, Scott and I talked about it this morning, hanging it on, because we do have, Sag Harbor Without Children is hanging it on our website for those in the community who would want to participate, so that, so it's open to the public, because it is, could be an extension of taxpayer dollars, so they should have the right to take the
So it could
survey,
be
so
posted.
they know it's available.
Right. So I'm asking to make
talking about is we can send an e-blast to the families and the staff, but we don't have necessarily the ability to send an e-blast to all community members on their information.
But I bet if we only had a nuppaper.
I know, if there was only a newspaper around that would do
might
that.
mention it.
So what we will do is put up a link on the website so that people who don't get the e-blast from us with the link can still take the survey.
And I think that
We
our
get the
local
separate,
media might be able to put it on their Facebook
Media
with a
from
little
teachers.
story saying there's now a link available.
It will be able to be sorted by just the answer to this question number 1.
Oh, got it.
Identify what
Got it. And then they're going to have to break that down a million times.
So,
good luck with that.
One of the things I want to look at is to make
Yep.
sure that we can
break it
ensure
down.
that people will be able to take the survey once. That's one of the things I need
Yeah.
to work out with
Yeah.
syntax to make sure that they've taken that into consideration.
Scott, since we don't have this in front of us, can you just scroll a little bit because it seems like these questions here, scroll, are the same as the spreadsheet at the bottom, isn't it? Do you support? How do you feel about it? And then keep going.
Well, the initial questions were designed to be a little bit more general. Originally, we designed questions that mirrored these, referencing what's presented in the chart, but it was just getting so
It was
cumbersome.
getting so cumbersome,
that we,
so we can
we
eliminate
thought
some of those.
for people sitting for a survey, they didn't want to be reading 25.
Well, it just seems like you're hitting the same target with these because if you keep going, Scott, unless I didn't see it. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Keep going.
No, I
Keep going,
think
keep
you're
going.
absolutely right. We just wanted
That.
we wanted to present both to you
Right.
this evening to receive that feedback.
But the first questions are option 1: do you oppose or not oppose?
Yeah.
Option 2: do you oppose or not oppose? Option 3, right? And then you go to the bottom and it asks you
Oh, I
the
see what
same
you're
thing
saying.
all over again,
One or the other.
right?
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Right.
But, yeah, the other language is more descriptive. You may
Yeah.
actually get better answers from, but anyway, you're right.
From
How unrealistic is it to tally up those answers, Scott, in a week? Does
It's all
syntax,
electronic.
it all,
It's automatic.
It's electronic.
Pretty much. I think the questions you're talking about, Chris, address the issue you were talking about, Anna, with the chart not being descriptive enough.
Right.
So those questions up top actually provide more information just looking at it quickly than the chart does because it identifies.
It tells you what each one is.
Right, tells you which one. So
No, they do, but
Same question.
So if it-
the difficulty we were
That's what
running
it is.
into
It's the same question, two
was
different
if-
ways, guys.
as we moved on to the more specific questions, for example, how do you feel about the bus runs being shared versus buying, purchasing or contracting for additional
Right.
buses? It was getting so clunky that people would
So if we
Yeah,
had
so what'd be done?
one really good spreadsheet and then just ask them to weigh in on all the options, that might be the simplest.
that was kind of yeah.
Are students being invited to take this?
We didn't know.
I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. I'm just wondering.
We had intended at this point to have it for the faculty, staff, and the parents.
Okay.
We could certainly administer it.
Well, yeah, we can leave that as a
Nothing
placeholder
prevents
for
a
them.
student from going on and taking it.
Yeah, well, we should have a placeholder for them.
Well, a student could,
The student can access it online.
if anyone can access it online, I mean, someone in Wyoming could fill this out, right? Anyone can access it online.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if we think students might fill it out, then you might want to give an option to say that it is a student, so you could see that data separately.
It's set up. What Scott was just saying is that one of the introductory questions asks
You're a student.
who you are, and students will fill it there. So
Oh, okay.
decide to do
So you have it.
To the reason they're black.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Lot,
you.
lot of work from our administrative team tonight. Great job,
Yeah.
guys.
Yep,
And ladies. Bill and Brittany.
At this time, we are going to move on to business items.
So hold on, can we just recap this? So
Yeah,
now
go
they're
ahead.
going to finish this up. It's going to go out to the population. Good word, 2 words. The 10th.
Mhm.
And then the results will be brought back to the board on the 19th. Okay. So we're all clear on the dates.
are we
Okay.
voting then?
I think we should. I mean,
In
let's
order-
look at what the
Let's see
data
what the data
says.
says.
Yeah.
Is there, you know what, I don't remember. Is there a general question of should they be moved or not, moved back or not? Because when you have 3 options, you can get small percentages in each, right? But you may have a majority that want, and I don't know if there's a majority or minority, but if there was a majority that wanted to be moved, they may start showing small percentages because there's lots of different choices. So is there a general, I don't remember, and it's been changed. Is there a general question in there?
Well, I think if you remember what we did with Stella Maris, when they kind of ranked them, right? In the end, if they're ranking them, we'll see who wants no change versus who
Any
wants
change.
any change.
Right. And then, so that'll be something that gets included in the report.
Right. All right. Anything else, board, before we move on to the business?
No, thank you. I just want to get that clarified.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve business items 1 and 2?
So moved. Can we split them?
You want to split them?
Yes, please.
Yep. Can I get a motion to approve business item number 1?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve business item number 2?
So moved.
Any discussion?
I do. I just want to say thank you to Corinne, who came in and just jumped in, ran with the race, did an amazing job, didn't skip a beat. It was just like you were here 20 years ago when we worked together here. And I want to say thank you because you came out of retirement to help us out and you did an outstanding job. So thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
No.
opposed? Motion
She
carries.
wants to enjoy retirement.
Yeah,
so I get that.
At this point, we'll move on to public input 2. Again, we'll have you state your name for the record. Keep your comments to 5 minutes. You're being videotaped.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Marianne Miller, parent of a senior, soon to graduate. Thank you all for that. I'm still praying. First, I'd like to thank the board for all of their service, and especially the two who are going on to bigger and better things in July. And to thank you for the millions of meetings I see you're having in the next month. God bless you and thank you. I know it's a lot of work and you're negotiating a lot of things, and the community does appreciate your hard work. I'd like to just talk a little bit about the IB review. My daughter is going to be graduating with a diploma. Once again, I'm still praying. Amazing program. Thank you for supporting it. And I'd just like to mention or very strongly recommend that the district continue to look at the music challenges that occur for IB diploma students. This is a district that's prided itself in high quality music programs and lots of offerings for students. And you put an instrument in their hand in 4th grade, and we expect them to continue to play until they exit Pearson. And unfortunately, up until now, the students, once around 10th grade, but definitely 11th grade, the small school scheduling challenges have forced our children to give up band and often chorus, I believe. And while we've been flexible trying to, have teachers teach during their duty periods and paying them a little stipend or doing whatever, in the end, our band program has suffered immensely. I know we have a new teacher and I know that we're working very hard, but I would like to say that that was just a big disappointment for us as a family because our daughter is a natural musician and clearly was getting very well served here, and to have her lose that part of her day was something it took us a long time to get over, and I was in the principal's office a lot about it. And so while we're talking about fees and money and juggling of staff, I would hope that you would consider, if you have to hire more staff or juggle staff or whatever, to continue a student's exploration in music, to me is very, very important. Just when they're getting very, very good and the music becomes very challenging and, you could do other things with it, all of a sudden they had to abandon it. So as someone who's leaving and is very, very pleased and proud of what we've done here as a district, I just would say don't keep your eye, keep your eye on the prize, and let's keep challenging ourselves to improve. The second thing is I would like to publicly thank the administration and the Board of Education for promoting and supporting and funding the prom transportation for the students. It's been on this table in this room a million times when I was on the board, before I was on the board. And as a parent of someone who's experienced without the school district transportation and then this year with, a huge difference. No one complained. The students, there was a small group of students in the senior class that were very mad about it for about 5 minutes. And the pre-prom presentation that the PTSA put together, there was some initial pushback from the seniors, once again, who tend to have issues with attitudes and that sort of thing. Again, a huge success and a big change in our community's approach to these events, which I always said, sending them to the prom is no different than sending them to regional playoffs or the, robotics event. They should be going in our buses with our staff, and who cares about the rest? A little bit of friction in the beginning. It was a huge positive change. And I hope you'll continue with that and do more things like that, because this year the prom was an incredible success and the kids always had fun, but we know that there was things that we needed to do to create good, clean fun. And I just really appreciate it. And all of the parents in the senior class, even though you don't hear from them probably, were very appreciative of that. So I just wanted to say thank you from my family on that note. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input too?
My name is Janice Arbia, and I just have a couple of things. One of the things I was noticing when we were going through the IB program was that assessments are paid for by the district, and I'm just wondering why the district has not paid in the past for AP exams for children. It's the same kind of concept. I know I write my check to Suffolk County Community College for that, but IB, no, we don't. So. But isn't that the same concept that they can get IB credit? Colleges will give them credit for that class, because I know students have gone on and not had to take like a social studies class because they went through. So it's the same concept. So I'm just not where the fair ground is on that for us parents that kids aren't going to go through the full IB process, why we have to pay, as opposed to that. I think it's something the board should consider financially for those that are not doing that still enjoy the AP aspect, but not the full IB program.
We are at one end of the spectrum in terms of capacity. Very, very rare to find. We're the only district the other consideration is that often the AP and the IB assessments are elements of vision. In other words, if you sit for AP US 6 obligation on students' part to sit. District is mandating that the students assessment and go to the pay for it. Decision to apply to Suffolk Community Associate Program or SUNY Albany.
Jeff, just can I ask for clarity? You don't have to go through that Excelsior program to get the college credits. So my oldest graduated with 32 college credits. We opted not to pay those fees to Excelsior. They all transferred to the state school. So you don't have to actually pay Suffolk County necessarily for community college, another college. They still counted.
I wish that would have been 4 kids later.
So, I mean,
I could add some new shoes.
I asked.
Good shoes.
I asked, like, do I have to? Do you have to? And then I called the school, and they said, no, you don't. I called Binghamton. They didn't have to. So just as an FYI.
Appreciate it.
The only qualifying factor there is go through the Excelsior program. The only requirement is that you achieve a certain grade.
high enough for that school, then it doesn't count.
It doesn't transfer, right?
So you would need a transcript from Suffolk Community College to get the credit
If
from
you
the
don't score
college.
as high as the college.
Yeah.
They give high school students a discounted rate and say, hey, your school's accounting course, for instance, gets approved by Suffolk Community, instead of paying $130 a credit, we'll only charge you $40.
Okay, thank you. I also just a little dabble in the later school start time. I'm just curious because my daughter has gone all the way from kindergarten and now she's 21. 3 kids behind her. I believe 2 years ago we visited this whole prospect of start times and everything, and you know there were some valid points. Maybe there weren't things people agree with. Maybe people didn't agree with. But as a board, we looked at all of these very similar options that are going out to survey now. I kind of feel like we did this already. I kind of feel like we had a very supportive board. We had a conscientious board to the community. And these were decisions that we made 2 years ago. And I'm just wondering, why are we going back? We all know, based on parents' feedback, you know, I got good kids and, you know, they make good decisions, but sometimes they don't make good decisions. So maybe there's language going on with an 11th grader that we're going to have with a kindergartner on a bus that we shouldn't have. People blew up 2 years ago, didn't want that. So why are we putting that on the table now? I kind of feel like it's monotonous. I feel like it's a waste almost of the time that we're making the administrators go through again. I don't really see any new things. I think as a board, a good board decided that we could add those 10 minutes. Like that's all we could do. Now we're going to nitpick it and try to get 15 out of there. Based on preparing for tonight's meeting, I went through the athletics and saw the good presentation that you had last May. Practice times for shared sports looks like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, they start at 3. So if we're going to dismiss kids at 3:01, they're late and they haven't even gone to their locker. So how do we support that? Mr. Bramoff has worked very hard to let kids have their time after school and say, I want to play lacrosse. Okay, you're going to go to Southampton, you're going to go to East Hampton because we don't have enough here. So I don't want to limit kids' opportunities to do things after school because it's later. It has the same thing to do with the plays. It's not all about athletics. It's extending that extra half-hour time onto their day. You know, put the kids to bed earlier. It's sleep time. It's not, you know, what time do you wake up in the morning? I got 4 kids. My youngest is up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock for no reason still. And my 11th grader now, if she could sleep till 11 o'clock, whoa, she'd be happy. But you know what? They all do not want to change in their school time because it works. It works all around. They use academic support. They really don't want to get rid of that because their workload is so hard. They do their group projects. They do everything together. So I would just plead with you that we just keep it the way it is because it's working. I don't think we should push that envelope for all of our children. A lot of kids play travel things that have other responsibilities that they have to go and do. And I think that builds a very well-rounded student. In our family, academics comes first. If you ask my youngest, she'll tell you in 7th grade, I pulled her from field hockey because her grades went down because academics come first. But you know what? Sitting here was her math and science teacher, and she got 2 outstanding achievement awards from them because she has a work ethic because she wants to play field hockey. That's what she wants to do, and it's her drive, and she gets the help, and she gets it done. The only thing else I had was, how do we make this survey so that we get the people that don't want the school start time to take it 50 times and the people that do want the school time, maybe they'll take it 75 times. How do we regulate this?
Scott's the policeman.
Yeah.
He's a widget.
I don't know
on the
how you
other
do
end.
that. That's all I have. Okay. Right. It's like voting for the best barbecue, right? You got a friend in the business, they're going to win. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input too?
Sheet. So, Marianne Miller. Question about the start school later and the spreadsheet. Does the spreadsheet account for the issue of academic support and the shared sports if the time is changed later? Is it explained to the voter in there that does academic support go away?
What it does is it lists the number of times that students would miss
Only for the fall. And that includes the shared sports missing or just the Pearson teams?
shared sports, what the assumption that Mr. Mona impact presentation, the students will only miss academic support for required contests, not for practice. So, for instance, imagine, to answer your question, if we dismissed at 3 o'clock and the transport time start to finish is 30 minutes, earliest that a student would get to a shared sport in East Hampton would be 3:30.
So they're late for practice every day unless they decide to have their family pick them up and take them over to East Hampton singly and separately from school district transportation. See, that's the caveat that needs to be explained in that survey. And I would say that the general population doesn't understand that. And anybody who hasn't been in interscholastic sports yet definitely doesn't get that. So an elementary parent's going to say, that sounds like a wonderful idea, until you tell them that to play tennis, they're leaving 30 minutes out of their school day. That's going in the trash. And that is a huge issue for me as a parent, even though I don't get to say anything anymore because this isn't going to impact me. But as a taxpayer, we're paying our staff to be with our students for those 30 minutes, but we're engaging and paying for a program at another school that's asking our students to throw 30 minutes of teacher time or staff time in the trash. And that is a big problem. And that has to be explained in the survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input too? All right, at this time, I would like to get a motion to adjourn.
Do you have any new business in there?
Yeah, I'd like to bring something up quick.
Oh.
New business.
Um,
Actually, old business.
Sure. Sorry.
Just to the board members, tomorrow night is the Sag Harbor Village Board meeting. I cannot make it to that meeting, but I don't know. You know, I was thinking about my presentation to them, but what I'd like to ask the board is, I'd like to meet with Robbie Stein. He's the liaison from Sag Harbor Village to the school. I'd like to kind of present our preliminary Stella Maris ideas to him, just to give him the books in the spirit of openness, cooperation, and everything with the Village of Sag Harbor. With that, so they're on board. They know what we're doing, and if they have issues, they can come to us and vice versa.
Any objection?
No, I actually was surprised when I looked at the one online. It didn't have everything. I thought it was not complete. The Stella Maris survey.
Oh, the green booklet?
The green booklet, it wasn't complete online.
Okay.
Was it missing pages for the
book?
presentation?
Oh, we took out they had the old numbers in there. That's what I took out, was the building condition. It wasn't a building condition survey. It was the old
original estimates.
architect's estimates, because it wasn't our current architect's estimates, and I thought that would really confuse people. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna, because I'd have to put over it old architect's estimates, because that's not these architects, and they're gonna have those numbers very soon. So
Okay, that's good, because it looks at this point like, we didn't put them up for, I don't know what reason. I just thought it was strange.
well,
We
no
didn't talk
you're,
about it.
you're
No
the
one
only
has.
ones. You're the only ones that saw that, so I left that out because it's.
Well, I know
old
Tommy's
numbers.
talking about transparency, though. I mean, I was there. I was just thinking the same thing, that it was a little just odd that that was the one thing that wasn't there.
So when will we?
I wanted to make sure that the Village of Sag Harbor has the booklet that we have, so they,
Right, but
moving
we
forward,
won't.
and so if they have any questions about that.
Hopefully,
They don't care about the
They don't care. They don't care.
I don't think they care how much
They don't
we
care about
spend on
the
fuel.
money piece anyway.
How much it costs us?
Those weren't even BBS numbers, so they weren't.
We have those numbers. They're going to be at our meeting on the 19th, right? They're presenting, so I hope they'll have the numbers then, right?
Yeah, and I
Excellent.
can
That's
call
great.
and find out how soon.
That's just in a couple weeks.
It would be throwing up bad information.
Yeah, no,
'Cause
right.
even they said, why did we put? Even they said, oh, we should have never put that in there.
But
Like, it should-
Diana, I'm sorry. Is that a yes for Tommy John? But I hear you saying you can't go. So do you need one of us to?
No. Well, if you would like to go and meet with them, that would be.
No.
me,
But you're just going to give it to them.
Yeah, I was going to maybe set up a meeting with their village liaison and just briefly explain what we were thinking about with the building, and really every step of the way, let them know what we were thinking about,
And we also let them know about the road.
especially that.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yep. I would have
yeah.
that. Yep. Have that.
Not be a surprise or anything.
Not be a surprise, and
Yeah.
also have conversation with the police department about the police chief.
That's the idea.
Well, I know that the architects are planning on having like those one-on-one design meetings with them, which might be better than a public forum.
Yeah, no, this would be me meeting with either the mayor, or just to give the booklet, and I mean this is very early. And then when we have those meetings, we would invite them, here to hear.
Well, the other thing is that I think it'll be very important early on to get reassurances that they don't have any plans for putting up no parking signs on the streets around that school. Because what we wouldn't want to do is the second week that school's open, all of a sudden there's no parking in the 4 blocks.
Okay,
So-
we're taking a different tact with this, and that's definitely part of it.
No,
to-
I'm
to
not. I'm not suggesting
bring
you
them in.
change your tact, but what I'm requesting is that part of the discussion is to have a parking part of the discussion to ensure that because we don't have enough parking as it is over there.
Exactly.
Stephanie, did you have something?
Yes, Scott. It's completely ridiculous, and everybody wants to go home, but it's not ridiculous. The acoustics, no. The culmination of drop off from kindergarten is graduation on a hill. And last year, the acoustics at graduation were a little challenged. Is that your department? Can we do something to fix? Well, yeah, we couldn't hear anything. Thank you. Because any parent that has to suffer from kindergarten to 12th grade deserves to hear it. That was it. That was my.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.